Every night, Janis Joplin walked onto a stage and made 25,000 people fall in love with her. And every night, she went back to a hotel room alone, hearing her father's voice in her head. Because when she was young, her father, a quiet refinery engineer in Port Arthur, Texas, taught her a secret about life, a dark one. He had a name for it, and once you hear the name, you will never forget it. The Great Saturday Night Swindle. She spent her entire career trying to prove him wrong. She even named an album after the fight. And the question that hangs over everything, over Monterey, over Woodstock, over Room 105, is the question we're going to answer today. In the end, was her father right? Before you answer, be honest with yourself. Have you ever worked all week for a Saturday night that didn't deliver? Then this story is about you too. Seth Joplin lived two lives. By day, he was an engineer at the Texaco refinery in Port Arthur, a respected company man for 40 years, though few knew he had actually dropped out of engineering school before finishing his degree. He simply outthought everyone around him. By night, he was something Port Arthur had no category for. He read voraciously, philosophy, literature, everything. He listened to Bach and Beethoven, and the music would move him, literally, to tears. He was a quiet atheist in the buckle of the Bible Belt. During Prohibition, he had taught himself to make bathtub gin. This was not a typical 1950s Texas refinery man, and of his 3 children, one looked at this strange, brilliant, melancholy father and recognized her own reflection. Janis said it herself. He was the only person in Port Arthur who made her think. At the kitchen table, he talked to her about ideas, real ideas, at an age when other kids were being told to sit still and behave. He was proud of her mind. She worshipped his. But there was something underneath Seth Joplin's brilliance, a deep, patient darkness, a theory about life he had worked out in that lamplit armchair, and one day his daughter would crash directly into it. Here is the theory in its simplest form. All week long, you work, you endure, you tell yourself, Saturday night, it will all pay off. The fun is coming, the reward is coming, the turning point is coming, and Saturday night arrives, and it never quite delivers. The party ends, the neon goes dark, and Monday is already waiting. So you tell yourself, next Saturday, next month, next year, when I grow up, when I find the right person, when I make it. Seth Joplin's verdict: the payoff never comes. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because the promise itself is a con. Life keeps you moving by dangling a Saturday night that does not exist. He called it the Great Saturday Night Swindle. Now, think about when and where he was saying this. Post-war America, the 1950s, the most aggressively optimistic society in human history, a country whose entire religion was it gets better. And in a small kitchen in Port Arthur, a Texaco engineer was quietly telling his daughter the opposite. Biographer Holly George Warren put it plainly. Janis absorbed this fatalism whole. The negativity rubbed off. She started running with the rebels, feeling like a loser before she had lost anything. But the moment the theory truly detonated in her life came years later, and it came in the form of a letter. By her early 20s, Janis had run to California and hit the wall. The San Francisco years of 1963 to 1965 nearly killed her. Methamphetamine had reduced her to a skeletal ghost. At one point, Seth was so worried he traveled to San Francisco to see her with his own eyes. She performed wellness convincingly enough to send him home. But inside, something had cracked. All her life she had believed the climb would level off, that adulthood was a hill, and one day you reach the top, and it stops being a struggle, and she had just realized it doesn't. So she did what she always did with her biggest feelings. She put them in writing. She sent her father a long, furious, broken-hearted letter, its essence in her own retelling. You always told me it was going to get better. I did everything they said. I grew up. I tried everything. And it ain't leveling off. She mailed it to Port Arthur, the thinker's daughter, reporting back to the thinker that his optimistic reassurances had failed. Except here is the twist she never saw coming. Seth Joplin read that letter, and he was proud of it. His daughter had arrived on her own at the very truth he had been carrying for decades. He showed the letter to his best friend, the man Janis called the only other intellectual in town. And the next time Janis came home to Port Arthur, that friend walked straight up to her, smiling, and delivered one sentence. "Well, I hear you learned about the Great Saturday Night Swindle." That was the initiation. That was the moment the family secret got its name said out loud to her face. There would be no turning point. No next month it gets better. This, right here, right now, was all there is. Most people would collapse under an idea like that. Janis Joplin did something stranger. She weaponized it. She gave the philosophy her own name, the cosmic blues, and then she built the most explosive stage presence of her generation directly on top of it. Think about her famous line, "On stage she made love to 25,000 people, then went home alone." That is not just a sad quote, that is the Saturday Night Swindle, stated as autobiography. The biggest possible Saturday night. An arena screaming your name, followed by the empty hallway. But here is what the dark theory missed, and what she knew it missed. The 2 or 3 hours on stage were real. If there is no future payoff, then the only thing that exists is now. So she poured 100% of herself into every single now she could reach. No saving her voice for tomorrow. No holding back for next year. Tina Turner warned her she'd have no voice left. She knew. Next year was not the point. Next year was the swindle. In 1969, she made the fight public. She stamped her father's philosophy, renamed in her own language, across the cover of her first solo album, "I Got Dem Ol' Cosmic Blues Again, Mama." A daughter arguing with her father's darkest idea in record stores across America. The album climbed to number 5 and stayed on the charts 28 weeks. Seth's kitchen table theory now had a soundtrack, which brings us to the question we opened with. The one that matters. Was he right? The case that Seth Joplin was right is brutal and obvious. His daughter got everything. The fame, the #1 records, the fortune, the psychedelic Porsche, the 500,000 people at Woodstock, and none of it filled the hole. The loneliness followed her into every hotel room. George Warren connects the dots directly. The swindle philosophy fed the anxiety, and the anxiety fed the need for something to numb it. On October 4, 1970, in room 105, the darkest reading of the theory was complete. There was no turning point. He had told her so. But before you accept that verdict, hear the other case. The Saturday Night Swindle says the reward never comes. Yet somewhere right now, a stranger is hearing "Piece of My Heart" for the first time and getting chills. 55 years after her death, she remains one of the top-selling vocalists in American history. The 3 hours on stage, the ones she refused to save for later, turned out to be the only currency time couldn't swindle. Everything she spent recklessly in the now is precisely what survived. Her father said the payoff never arrives. Her answer, written in every recording, "Then stop waiting for it and burn completely tonight." One of them was right about a life. The other was right about a legacy. Seth Joplin outlived his daughter by 17 years in the Port Arthur house with her records. Whatever he concluded in those years, whether the swindle had claimed her or whether she had beaten it in the only way it can be beaten, he kept, like everything else, to himself. So now it's your turn. The kitchen table is yours. The Great Saturday Night Swindle, real or beatable? Tell us below, because everyone watching this has a Saturday night they're still waiting for. Subscribe. The next story goes somewhere nobody has taken you before.